Hey community, it is Pastor Brett with today's daily Bible reading. As always, follow along, get these passages and the videos delivered into your inbox at findcommunity.com/Bible reading. You can opt in there. Today's passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 is preparing us for this weekend's message in which we look at our third rhythm of discipleship, or our third rhythm for a resilient faith. We're going to look at the rhythm of freedom. How do we make freedom from strongholds? Freedom from maybe a stronghold could be a pattern of sin, a pattern of wrong thinking, of maybe just simply not believing what God says about who we are and who we are in Jesus. And these strongholds, they entangle us to make us believe that maybe we don't have the freedom and the victory that is ours in Jesus. And so this passage is going to be one of the core texts that Pastor Scott unpacks for us and we look at together on Sunday. So let's look at it with expectant hearts this morning. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 1 through 6. Let's read. By the humility and gentleness of Christ, I appeal to you. I, Paul, who am timid when face to face with you, but bold toward you in a way. I beg you that when I come, I may not have to be as bold as I expect to be towards some people who think that we live by the standards of this world. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And we will be ready to punish every act of disobedience once your obedience is complete. Now, I want to draw our attention to two things that are happening in this text. First, Paul talks about being bold and timid, and even in my text it has a few of the words in quotation marks because the author wants us to know that he's responding to some rumors, some hearsay going on amongst the Corinthians. The rumor, the gossip on the street is that Paul is timid when he's with them in person. He's gentle in spirit and kind and nurturing, but when he goes away and he writes them letters, he is bold, right? And he calls them out for their sin, and he speaks the truth to them. And Paul is saying, yeah, I, Paul, who you say am timid when away, but timid when I'm with you, but bold when I'm away, I am going to be bold when I'm with you if I continue to see what I expect to see, what I've heard has been happening there. He's kind of taking their own stereotype about who Paul is, and he's turning it on its head. He said, I've been timid when I've been with you because I didn't have to be bold, but now when I'm away, I'm hearing what's going on, and I have to be bold. I have to speak out about what's going on. And I'm afraid that when I show up back in the city of Corinth, I'm going to have to be outspoken and bold and maybe challenge you, maybe even step on a few toes, because I hear, Paul says, that there are those who think that we live by the standards of this world at the end of verse 2. In other words, he's saying that there are Christians who think that we live just like everyone else, just like the world does. We operate by the same ways of thinking and the same ways of growing, the same ways of prospering, of being successful. And that's what Paul's going to take down. That's our second point. He says we don't win like the world wins. We don't wage war like the world wages war. We don't approach success and victory the way the world approaches those things. No, we actually have access to what does Paul say? To divine power in verse 4. Divine power to destroy, to demolish, to tear down strongholds of sin in our lives. Strongholds in which Satan may have a foothold in our way of thinking about God or about the world or about ourselves. How do we operate into those in that power? How do we demolish those strongholds? He tells us in the next verse, in verse 5, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. There's a way that God sees us, and yet there's often a lie. right? God says we are beloved, and yet the lie is that you have to prove yourself worthy of God's love. The truth is that we are enough and we are victorious in Christ, but the lie is you will never be enough, that you don't deserve God's love. The truth is that you are a child of God. That's the knowledge that we have of who we are in God. And the lie says, no, He's left you. He's forgotten you. He's orphaned you. And so Paul is telling the church in ancient Corinth and us today is that if we are to demolish those strongholds, if we are to what we do is we take those lies and we expose them to the truth. That is, at the end of that verse, we take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. And so when the deceiver would whisper into our ears to say, you're not enough, we say, no, I know the truth. The truth has divine power to demolish that stronghold in my life. I am enough, not because of who I am, but because who Christ is and what He's done on my behalf. When the lie whispers that you are not loved, we expose it to the truth of Christ. We bring that thought and make it obedient to the truth in Christ, which is, no, you are God's treasured possession. You are His beloved people. When the lie whispers in your ear that sin has won, that you cannot be victorious over this besetting sin or this pattern of sin in your life, we expose it to the light of Christ and we hear the truth of the gospel, which is, no, we have power in Christ to overcome. We are victorious because of the cross and the resurrection of Jesus, and that same resurrection power is alive and at work in our hearts today. I pray and I hope that message, that hope, that idea that we are to expose the lies to the light of Christ and let the light of Christ evaporate them and dispose of them and demolish those strongholds in our life. I pray that would bring you some freedom today. Can't wait to chat with you guys and see you virtually on Sunday. Love you guys. God bless.